becomes more confused.
A striking face. Not just conventionally pretty, much more than that. But can that really be the face of a poisoner?
I'm afraid I'm rather a hopeless case.
Oh, don't say that. It can't be hopeless unless you actually did it. And I know you didn't.
And I didn't, as a matter of fact.
You don't happen to know who did, I suppose?
Poor Biggs. Quite rattled by that old Judge Jeffries, who is even now rehearsing to pronounce the death sentence.
Oh, how dreadful.
That bad? It mustn't happen. Absolutely not.
If she's found guilty, Harriet Vane will face the death sentence. Lord Peter Wimsey has very little time to investigate a case of strong poison. A Dorothy L. Sayers mystery, beginning on Wednesday at 9:25.
And each episode of the Dorothy L. Sayers Mysteries will be repeated the following Saturday, starting next week at 9:45. Later tonight, William Bendix and Arthur Kennedy lead a group of convicts in a prison breakout, which adds murder to their crimes in our film Crash Out at 11:35. But now, a little later than shown in Radio Times, the Screen 2 presentation with Alan Howard and Phoebe Nichols in Poppyland.
Please.
I don't have another room, sir. I'm sorry.
This is absurd. You do realize who I am?
Oh, Mr.
I am Clement Scott, the dramatic critic of the Daily Telegraph. And also its leading travel writer, which is why I have come here to report on this resort of yours, madam.
Really? Well, I'm sure you'll find a lot to write about here, sir. Nigger minstrels are meant to be very good this year if you're interested in the theatre.
You fail to understand me, madam. I was invited here by the Great Eastern Railway Company. I now intend to take a walk. And if, upon my return, you have failed to find me an amenable room, away from the noise of that interminable band, I shall be forced to tell my readers that the only possible thing I can recommend about your resort is the railway station, particularly the London-bound platform.
Goodness.
I do apologize. I was just admiring your beautiful garden. And your house. It's like something a child might draw.
Oh. Thank you.
I just walked from Cromer. I wondered, could I possibly be allowed a lodging for a few days?
Yes. I suppose. I'd have to ask my father first, of course. Shall I ask him to collect your things? If you've got anything.
Could you eat eggs and bacon for your supper, sir?
Nothing would give me greater pleasure, Alfred. In fact, anything rather than the reheated rubbish one is forced to consume in Cromer.
It's all fresh cooked, yes, sir.
Do sit down, Louis. Do you mind if I call you Louis?
Oh, please. It's Mr. Clement Scott, innit? Well, I knew it was, because I read it on your luggage. You're the one who writes for the newspapers, aren't you?
I have to admit that I am.
About plays? That's right, innit?
That is so. And I have written one or two dramatic works myself, in the few spare moments that I have.
Really? Oh, I didn't know that.
Leave the poor gentleman alone, Louis. Don't come all this way to be cross-questioned.
No, I don't mind at all. I'm delighted to find a young girl with an interest in the theatrical art. You are interested in the theatre?
Oh, yes. Yes. I keep cuttings from newspapers and magazines about all the plays.
Really?
Well, I can't get hold of all the newspapers, but the ones I can get hold of, yes. And I keep pictures from magazines. Theatre magazine. You write for that, don't you? Well, I always try and buy that. You make me feel as if I've really seen the play sometimes, the way you write about things.
Thank you. And do you go to London sometimes to see the plays that you read about?
Been a couple of times. It's lovely. But it's difficult, I mean, with helping my father with the mill and there's the house.
You must make time. You must go. It's a tremendously exciting time for the dramatic art this century of ours. The most exciting in the whole history of the theatre. And of course, I like to think that in my own small way, I have contributed something to its stature. It is true. But,
Oh, I'm sorry.
oh, not at all. It has been a delight to talk with you. Delightful countryside, delightful company. What more can a man ask from this life?
Do you like blackberry pudding, Mr. Scott?
Do I like blackberry pudding?
You know, this really is the most pleasant of spots. I envy you your life here. I envy you deeply.
You shouldn't go too near the cliff edge. Bits of it are always breaking off.
What is this place called?
Doesn't have a name. It's where the old church was. They had to move it inland because the cliffs keep collapsing. It's the same all along the coast here.
And the tower.
It's from the church. That'll leave it here. It's a sea mark. For the ships.
You know, Louis, I've traveled all around the world, thousands of miles, writing thousands of words about the sun rising over the Alps, the beauty of the Swiss lakes, the peace and seclusion of the Black Forest. And yet this must be the most restful place in the whole of the world.
It's the only place I've ever known. Oh, he's really interesting, Charlie. You'd like him. He's the most interesting man that I've ever met.
Is he?
He knows everyone. All the people in the theatre. He goes to the theatre every night.
Must get boring every night.
Oh, I wouldn't get bored. Everyone knowing who you are. Everyone being scared in case they write horrible things about their plays. Oh, it sounds a wonderful life to me.
I'm glad you're having such a nice time, Louis. Married then, is he, this Mr. Scott?
I think he is. You know what these people are like, these writers and artists. They're much too busy to really bother about things like that. Surprised he paid for being famous, I suppose.
I never heard of him.
Theodore, listen to this. It might suit us very well, I think. At a mile removed from the seaside town of Cromer, I did not find a human being. It is difficult to convey an idea of the silence of the fields through which I passed, or the beauty of the prospect which surrounded me. A blue sky without a cloud across it, a sea sparkling under a haze of heat, wild flowers in profusion around me, poppies predominating everywhere. Blah, blah, blah. Does sound rather a delicious sort of place, don't you agree? In spite of this worthy man's florid style of cockney enthusiasm.
Yes.
He even mentions the little house where he stayed. You know, I should like nothing more than to spend a few days in terra completely incognita, far, far away from the hurly-burly of the South London suburbs.
Algernon, surely you prefer to stay in Cromer.
No, Theodore, I should not prefer that at all.
Consider, it is all the advantages of civilization. And of course we can always venture out too. Where is it? Whenever we wish.
The correspondent, who fortunately for him is unnamed, calls it Poppyland. Very aesthetic, I know. But I imagine one could discover its real name without too much difficulty.
One
only has to contact the telegraph, Theodore. Mention my name. I'm sure you can do that. And I'm sorry, I positively refuse to stay in Cromer. I've always found it a rather esplanade-y sort of place.
Algernon, have you ever been to Cromer?
Please try to accommodate my wishes, Theodore. You know how it upsets me when we quarrel. And when I'm upset, I can no longer write.
I'm afraid I cannot tell you the name of my companion. Suffice to say, he's a man of considerable eminence. And I do mean considerable.
Where is he then, Mr. Watson, at the moment?
Somewhat reluctantly ensconced in an hotel in Cromer, from which I hope to remove him as soon as is possible. If everything is suitable, of course. Which I'm sure it will be.
It's a very simple house. No finery, no fancy meals, I'm afraid.
No, no. But that's precisely what he wants. Now, would you mind if I confirm a few small details with you? My companion must have access to a sandy beach where deep water bathing is possible at all times. On that, he's most insistent. I'm sure that won't be a problem.
We'll be digging out the new steps soon. We have to do it every year. I hope he doesn't mind a bit of a climb.
No. He doesn't mind at all. Well, let's find this journey. I don't think we need to explore any further. Everything seems most appropriate. Only remains to settle terms. And oh, one other thing. My companion is a man of innate good breeding, but he's of a rather delicate disposition and is allowed strictly no alcoholic beverages, except for a half pint of Bass Pale Ale at mealtimes. You do understand me?
Swinburne! This is a singular honor to have such a man in your house. To think that my little piece in the Telegraph should bring such a great man all this way.
Poet, isn't he?
I'm only sorry that I'm going. I should have liked nothing better than to have been here to welcome him.
But you can meet him back in London, can't you, Mr. Scott? I mean, you must know him in London, do you?
No, not at all. Not very well, no. But I know what I shall do. I shall leave him a little surprise. If you'll excuse me, Louis, Alfred.
We shall have the whole of London here soon, Father.
Poets like Mr. Swinburne, Louis, do they get a lot of money for what they do?
Oh, I don't really know. But I'm sure they have a wonderful time. I mean, what I've read about Mr. Swinburne. Well, he certainly does.
Well, somebody like Mr. Scott say, do we earn more or less than Mr. Swinburne?
I've already agreed the rate with Mr. Watts Dunton, Father, and it's exactly the same as we charge Mr. Scott.
I was only interested, Louis. I mean, so natural, isn't it?
Absolutely glorious, Theodore! Everything that I anticipated!
Isn't it rather dangerous that far out?
Oh, dear, you can't swim! I know you prefer Parsley, Theodore, but even you must agree that the North Sea is decidedly preferable to our dirty little corner of the Thames.
Please don't talk while you're swimming.
Now, don't read me again that appalling bit of doggerel Mr. Scott left for me.
I thought it was rather a generous gesture.
Theodore!
Very well. Sing of our Poppyland, my master, sing. Sing of our summer fields in deathless rhyme. Thou hast the harp, thou hast the voice to fling its tune and triumph and record in time. I rather like it. Well, in an amateurish sort of way, of course. Sing of our cliffs that overlook the sand. Sing of our mother, the green girdled sea.
What?
Green girdled sea is very good. One of his better images, I thought.
Yes, it is indeed. It is excellent. And why? Because it is my line, not his. The man has stolen my line. O fair green-girdled mother of mine, sea that art clothed with the sun and the rain, thy sweet hard kisses are strong like wine. Thy large embraces are keen like pain. Save me and hide me with all thy waves. Find me one grave of thy 1,000 graves, those pure, cold, populous graves of thine, wrought without hand, in a world without stain. Thank you.
It was beautiful.
beautiful, Mr. Swinburne. Thank you.
You know, I don't think Mr. Scott was trying to steal your line, Algernon. I think it was meant rather as a tribute to you.
Oh, I thought Mr. Scott's poem was really good. Didn't you?
Will you pass the butter, Theodore?
Oh, I'm sorry. Do you know, I can still hardly believe it. Having two such great poets staying here, all in the space of 2 days. You and Mr. Scott.
You know, I have never thought of Mr. Scott so much as a poet. Rather as a versifier, I should say.
Verse for you? That sounds very grand.
Does it?
Excuse me.
Oh, I'm so sorry.
Pardon?
I cannot abide the sight of cut flowers.
You were not to know, my dear.
Poor innocents who have undergone execution. Beautiful heads that have been severed from their fair, fragile bodies.
Of course.
Barbarous practice. Dead foliage mocking the vibrant splendor of its former self. And why? To gild the dinner tables of our graceless age.
You see, the bard is sensitive to things that we lesser mortals don't even notice. His heart is so finely attuned to the whole of nature that, as you saw, the suffering of a single flower causes him severe physical pain. It's a great burden, but it's the price of genius, I suppose.
Mr. Wattstonton,
Hmm?
is it true that Mr. Swinburne is a Republican?
Republican? Whoever told you that?
I don't know. I think I read it in a magazine.
Mr. Swinburne has been devout Church of England all of his life. You must never believe what you read in the press, young lady. They've done the bard untold harm. Especially with their slanderous allegations that some of his poems have celebrated certain areas of physical life. Whereas to my mind it is clear they are not celebrations at all, but dire warnings of the dangers of indecent excess. It's always been the fate of the great artist to be misunderstood.
Whose furrows tell how far and wide wind is lord, and change is sovereign of the strand. I should like you to have this as a small token of my thanks. You will see I have signed it for you.
Father, we have a poem that the great Mr. Swinburne has written specially for us.
Which poem is this?
The Cliffside Path, looking towards East Runton.
Oh, yes. How appropriate.
Goodbye! Goodbye! You will remember me to Mr. Scott, won't you?
seen you for months.
You have? Anyway, been busy.
No, you ain't.
I have.
We just want to know we're still walking out together.
Of course, Charlie. If you want.
I'm glad. You're a rum un. There's no one like you.
You all right now, Charlie? Now we're back to normal. Promise. Sugar, 3 pence candied peel, 3 pounds sultanas, 3 pounds currants. Did I forget the lemons?
It is so kind of you. At such short notice. I hope that my unexpected letter didn't completely spoil your Christmas.
You're welcome any time, Mr. Scott. You know that.
You know, Louis, I had planned to spend the closing moments of this year communing with the dead in that little graveyard by the cliff edge.
Really?
Yes. It has stayed with me ever since the summer, tempting me with its promise, its tranquility, until I knew I had to come back to it.
Would you like some supper first?
You know, I feel better already, just standing here like this. I wish I didn't have to return tomorrow. It seems, well...
Oh, nothing's the matter.
No, just a plethora of plum pudding and pantomimes. I had to get away.
Would you like me to take your coat? If you keep it on much longer, you won't feel the benefit.
Thank you, my dear. You were right, I'm afraid. It has not been the most joyful of Christmases.
Oh, I didn't mean to
Of course not. My wife, Constance, you know, she is my second wife.
No.
She's somewhat younger than me. She is a marvelous woman. She really is. But I sometimes feel that the responsibility of bringing up 4 children, not even her own, well, she is not as happy as she was. I cannot deny it. Is very different from the woman that I married.
I am sorry.
Home is no longer a particularly peaceful place to be. If I desire peace, well, that is why I am here with you, my dear. God, how unforgivable to burden you like this.
No, please.
I do apologize. Oh, what is this?
It's a poem from Mr. Swinburne. He gave it to me.
Did he? Oh, that's something to treasure, Louis. Certainly.
It's nice, isn't it?
You know, I had rather thought I would write you a poem, too.
Would you? Oh, that would be wonderful.
After I've rested, yes. I trust that my room is smelling of lavender as before, And that after my rest, I can look forward to eggs and bacon, fresh bread and butter, and at last...
In my garden of sleep, where red poppies are spread, I wait for the living, alone with the dead. For a tower in ruins stands guard o'er the deep, at whose feet are green graves of dead women asleep. Did they love as I loved when they lived by the sea? Did they wait as I wait for the day that may be? Was it hope or fulfilling that entered each breast? Ere death gave release and the poppies gave rest. O life of my life, on the cliffs by the sea, by the graves in the grass, I am waiting for thee. It's beautiful, Mr. Scott. So sad.
I'm glad that you liked it.
You know, I think it's even better than Mr. Swinburne's poem.
Oh, now, Louis.
Oh, life of my life, on the cliffs by the sea, by the graves in the grass, I am waiting for thee.
You like that?
Is that you, Mr. Scott? Waiting for someone? I hope you don't mind me asking.
Well, my dear Louis, you really mustn't mistake the authorial for the personal eye. It is simply a piece of imaginative writing.
Sorry, I just thought that after what you said about your wife...
It is extraordinary how depressed one can feel after a long train journey. That and the aftermath of the festive season perhaps made me say more than was entirely wise, or for that matter, true. Please, do not think of it anymore, I beg you. Now, would you tell Alfred to get my bags ready? I really must not be late for the train.
No! Don't do that, Charlie.
Why not? It's the only thing to do up here. How do you fancy going into Cromer tonight? See the music hall? How'd you like that?
I'd rather not, if you don't mind.
Why not?
Just not so fond at Cromer as I used to be. It's become a rather vulgar sort of place. Don't you think?
I'm delighted you continue to keep the garden in such good order, Louis.
Thank you, Mr. Scott.
I have a particular reason for saying that. Would you like to hear what it is?
Yes, of course, Mr. Scott. If you feel sure you'd like to tell me.
I have been spreading the word, since I was last here, about the pretty mill house and the even prettier young lady who lives in it. I think you will be impressed with the people I have talked to. They were all most taken with what I told them.
What sort of people, Mr. Scott? If you don't mind me asking.
Ah, Well...
What do you tell him?
You mustn't ask me to repeat private conversations I have had with old and dear friends, Louis. It would be most inappropriate.
But aren't they going to come and stay? I mean, it would help if I knew.
Well, you cannot treat the theatrical profession as you would do the rest of the world. They are creatures of whim, even the most senior of the profession.
But if they just turn up and we're full, they're just going to have to go away again.
But I hardly think that if Sir Henry Irving were to knock on the door, you would turn him away. You would find him room, would you not?
The tragedy is he was a great man once, many years ago. He was a writer. Now he lives in the sad, twilight world. Pressure of success. A lesson to all of us. Sims.
Such a pity Sir Henry could not come.
I'm sure that Mr. Pattett and Mr. Sims are just as nice.
Of course. Of course they are. It's just that Sir Henry isn't, how shall I put it, ostentatious in any way. In my experience, the truly great never are. They have no need to be.
But they've had plays put on at Drury Lane, haven't they? And other places.
Oh, yes. They write a new play virtually every month. And if quantity were the only criterion, well, Mr. Sims also writes a lengthy column in The Referee each week.
Yes, I know. I read it. It's very funny.
And a veritable deluge of pamphlets of a very radical persuasion.
Does that mean that he's a Republican, then?
Well, he could certainly afford to be. He is said to have earned £15,000 last year. In my experience, only the extremely rich are ever truly radical.
You're not talking about yourself again, are you, Clement?
Unfortunately, no, Sims. Not on either count.
Clement was a dramatic radical in the 60s, you see. But as the years have gone by, he's become a dramatic conservative, I fear. I hope we haven't scared your neighbours in the village, my dear.
Oh, I'm sure you haven't, Mr. Sims. I'm sure they feel just as lucky as I do to have you here.
Oh, thank you.
If you'll excuse me.
Well, Clement, where have you hidden the whiskey? Check the piano, Henry. Check the piano. Yes, here. Come on, you can't keep it all to yourself. It's quite right, Clement. It is a little selfish. You should only find it in the end.
I think you'll find it in the sideboard, Mr. Sims.
A veritable saint, my dear fellow. You were right.
Aha! Good company. Superb countryside.
A hostess who ensures that the cup that cheers never runneth out. I shall certainly tell my readers that Poppyland is everything that I was promised. And more.
You reckon you'll be getting £2 for us soon, you know?
Who's we?
Oh, folks in the village. That funny chap with the red hair's back, isn't he?
Mr. Swinburne, yes. Yeah.
Don't know how you pack 'em all in, Louis.
It's business, Joe. It'd be silly to turn him away now if you don't mind.
Joe!
Well, you want him to come, don't you?
Mr. Barrett is a very famous actor, Father, and he's a great friend of Mr. Scott. He said it will really help us having a real star to stay with us.
Help who?
Mr. Scott has been very good to us, Father.
Seems to me they get back just as much as they give, if not more.
They do pay. I should hope that they do get something back for their money.
I wasn't talking about bed and board.
Then what are you talking about? Do you want me to charge for the countryside? I sometimes think that you resent the fact that they get it free.
I wasn't talking about that either. Still, you best find a room somehow. We need the money. Millions of dying trade. You want to save from bed and breakfast.
It is not just the money, Father.
They pay as much as some jobs, of course, like writing. Cozy little pieces about the way the peasants live.
Oh, I see.
Good for a chuckle. Have your toast marmalade before you get the train to the office. That's about it, isn't it? That's what we are.
I am not going to listen.
If this old mill was earning like it used to, I wouldn't have any of them. No, not any of them.
Excuse me, is there anybody there?
Yes, of course, Mr. Swinburne. Please, come in.
Oh, it's delightful.
You must have been here last year.
No, I did not wish to interrupt the honest labourer at his task. But this year, well, Mr. Scott has been telling me about your weighing machine.
Oh, yes. Well, I always like to weigh my guests at the beginning and end of their visits, just so they can see how much good it's done them. Now, I'll take your coat, and so it won't get dirty, and you can take the flour off. You know, we're expecting Mr. Wilson Barrett here shortly.
Oh, really? So Poppyland is to become a haven for thespians as well as the literati?
No. No, you have to put your knees up to your chest.
For myself, I have always thought Mr. Barrett a much better performer than his material merited, except in the case of his Hamlet, where the material was decidedly better than the performance.
Don't wobble, please.
You know, my dear, your little house will soon be so infested with artists of every description that I shouldn't be surprised if you're forced to go up to London for a bit of peace and quiet.
Sorry.
Would you be Miss Jeremy?
Yes.
Wilson Barrett, at your service, mademoiselle.
How kind.
Miss Nellie Bonser.
How do you do?
Very well, thank you.
I have heard reports of your beauty, dear child, from my good friend Scott.
From Mr. Scott?
But mere words, even Clementina's, cannot do justice to such perfection.
Really?
I must savor it for myself.
Please, my father. Scott.
Louis.
It's for the party. Tomorrow.
Oh, yes. Of course.
Mr. Barrett gave me some of his programs, a whole pile of them, and copies of the theatre magazine.
an extraordinary likeness.
Do you really think so?
Would you not be comfortable in something a little simpler?
But Mr. Barrett has invited all his friends from London.
Yes, but I'm sure they would much rather see you in your natural clothes.
Natural?
The simple, delightful clothes that you normally wear.
Their clothes won't be simple or natural.
But have you asked yourself why? Because they do not have your shiny, sparkling cheeks, your healthy complexion.
They're not shiny, are they? I put powder on them every day.
You must promise me not to, Louis. From this moment on, will you promise me that?
And homeward by the downs we, before the night upon his grave is sealed. Low behind us lies the bright, steep, murmuring town. High before us heaves the steep, rough, silent field. Breach by ghastlier breach, the cliffs collapse
Miss
and
Jeremy.
yield.
Dear child, my heart never fails to flutter when I see you approach.
Really, Wilson. I'm sure that's not true, Mr. Barrett.
How dare you! I was never more serious in my life.
No, if you're not very careful, she might actually start to believe you.
Will you marry me?
No, thank you, Mr. Barrett.
That's the spirit, Louis. Don't listen to him.
Can you imagine anything more frightful than being married to him?
Terribly cruel.
Would you like a sandwich, Miss Bonson?
Thank you.
Then will you come to London with me? I mean it.
No, thank you, Mr. Barrett.
No, listen to him, Louis. Mr. Sims and I would like to show our appreciation of your superb hospitality by inviting you to see a little show I am appearing in. With the talented Miss Bonser here.
Written, I must in all modesty add, by yours truly.
Ever heard of the Lights of London?
At the Princess's.
There you are. What did I tell you? She should have been a critic. I swear she knows more about what's on in town than I do.
Well?
Of course, I do not mind. What right do I have to mind?
I had no choice. I never imagined that you wanted to take me, Mr. Scott.
Of course I wanted to show you Irving at the Lyceum. The full glory of our English stage. On the other hand, I did not want to expose you.
Expose me? Expose me to what?
I do not want you to lose what you have, Louis. I couldn't bear to see it dulled and tarnished by that foolish, false world.
Well, you were very fortunate tonight, Louis. Wilson put on an excellent performance. That'll be perfect, thank you, Francis.
It was wonderful.
Yes, he even spoke the lines, He even spoke the lines as I wrote them. Well, more or less. Do you know, I suddenly realized they are actually rather better than the rambling paraphrase he normally resorts to. Oh, yes, the usual, please. It must be because you were in the audience, my dear. He's long since given up trying to impress me. Thank you.
Mr. Scott! Oh, I didn't expect to see you here.
My dear Louis.
Yes, Clement insisted that he had a part in this. I can't think why I agreed.
Don't you think that we're all mad, my dear?
Choosing this insane, bustling world when we could, at this very moment, be leaning over your little garden fence, staring at the field mice playing quietly in the corner.
Not at 11 o'clock at night, Clement.
Tell me, did you enjoy the play? What did you think of Miss Bonser as Hetty Preen?
Oh, she was marvellous. And so was Mr. Barrett. They were so real. I had completely forgot that it was them.
Then you're luckier than I. I have just suffered Tree's latest extravaganza at Her Majesty's.
How did you find it?
Oh, much as usual, full of live rabbits and rather dead performances. Seeing you, therefore, is all the more pleasant.
I thought Mr. Tree was a friend of yours.
I sometimes think, my dear, that critics have no friends, only their readers.
Sometimes not even them.
Yes.
Talking of critics, Louis thinks my play's a masterpiece, you know, Clement. By far the best play she's ever seen.
Really? Then obviously she has never seen Irving in The Bells.
No. But it makes all the difference knowing the stars and the writer. I mean, I've never met Sir Henry Irving.
Well, that will be rectified shortly, my dear. Because Sir Henry is coming to the Mill House soon. I can promise you that. I have his word on it this time.
Really? And do you have any plays on in London at the moment, Mr. Scott? I should love to see one if you do.
Not at this moment, no. I'm afraid the last one did not have an extended run.
Nor the one before that.
My summer dream! My dream of innocence. You were made for better things, Hetty Preen, my own dear Hetty. And one day, you shall have them. One day I shall be squire, and we will marry. You shall be a great lady and have servants and diamonds and oh, such lovely dresses. But until then, my darling, God knows there has been little enough of romance in your life. But until then, I'd sooner be here tonight, an outcast in this desolate park with you by my side, than be my father's heir with the finest lady in the land for my wife.
I sometimes think it was a mistake that I was born poor, Charlie. I should have been born a great lady. I like to run away from this house. It's so mean and common, despite all I do to it.
I like the Mill House.
Oh, but you haven't been to London. If you had, the world's so much more exciting there than we ever see. People with servants and diamonds and... Oh, such lovely dresses.
You fall off, you're not careful.
I think I shall go and live there forever one day.
Suit yourself.
I might very well. After all, I got friends in London.
Friends?
Yes. Good friends. A lot nicer than anyone here. I hate village people. A girl can't dress better than they do, but they chatter about her.
Not your dresses they're chattering about.
What's that supposed to mean? They're just jealous. Of the people I know!
Bravo, Louis, bravo.
Thank you.
A perfect rendition, my dear Louis.
Well, tell me, Clement, how does it feel to be serenaded by your own popular hit?
I have never had anything against popular success per se, Sims, as long as the music seeks, as it does here, to express the inner truth of one's words, and does it as movingly as Mr. de Lara has done with my little poem.
What he means, George, is that he needs the money. It's delicious.
I have always regarded my poetic writings as an intensely private and personal expression of my deepest thoughts and feelings, and I should never dream of compromising my, dare I say, my poetic vision for the sake of mere money.
An admirable philosophy, one with which I know the bard agrees wholeheartedly.
Of course, I would not wish to compare my modest verses with his great works.
Excuse me, Mr. Scott.
Of course not.
Mr. Scott.
In a minute, Louis, please. What is it, Louis?
I was wondering if you'd like some more blackberry pudding. This must be getting cold by now.
How kind. Yes, please.
Would Mr. Swinburne like me to keep some for him?
I fear not. I do not think he'll be down again this evening.
Well, he's not ill, is he?
No. The truth is, we heard today that the poet laureate is close to death.
Lord Townsend? How dreadful.
No wonder he cannot face anyone at such a tragic time.
It is not quite that.
He will become laureate himself now. Of course.
Mr. Swinburne will?
Of course. Just think, Louis, of the glory that will attach to you for having fed and housed the man that is about to become poet laureate.
Theodore. He will be made laureate.
Alfred who?
Austin. Alfred Austin. Alfred Austin! First, Alfred Lord Tennyson, and now Alfred Austin. Clearly, they now choose the laureate according to whether his Christian name is Alfred, not according to the quality of his poetry at all.
Is there anything that I can do, Mr. Swinburne?
You lent him money.
Only a couple of shillings.
Oh, no.
Why? What have I done wrong?
Tell me, Swinburne, does shame within burn as hot? Swish, swish as your stripes, my lad, burn outside? Have I tamed your pride? I'm glad to see how it hurts. God, swish, I wish it may cure you. Swish, get up. By Jove, what a dose I've had. The next poem also celebrates the anniversary, the Golden Jubilee of Queen Victoria, and concerns the sexual appetite of our dear Queen. Dealing in particular with her first unfortunate lapse from virtue with a common scoundrel called Wordsworth.
I thrash you like a dog. You go on talking like that.
Oh. Don't say like a dog. Do say like a cat. Swish, swish, like a cat.
I can take care of my good fellow, please.
Ah, included in the dramatis personae are the Marchioness of Mouseprick, Viscount Fitz-Arse, and the Honourable Monica Friggin. The subplot of this magnificent epic work concerns the comings and goings, particularly the comings, of one Bertie Buggeridge and his very close friend, Mr. Suckling...
Louis, close your ears to this filth.
Scott, for heaven's sake!
One of the many climaxes occurs when it appears that Bertie has contracted syphilis while in Poxford.
Oh, Mr. Swinburne!
Would you like some tea? Got some fresh raspberries we only picked this morning.
No, thank you, Louis. I must take my walk.
Well, then I'll keep some for you when you get back.
There is really no need. I must confess, I had not anticipated being quite so much within the public gaze. To think that I have done this, if I had not praised it, its peace, its beauty.
But you did not invent it, my dear fellow. You merely put a name to it. The rest of the world has as much right to Poppyland as we do.
It is I who have sown the seeds of its destruction.
Destruction?
One day, not far from now, mark my words, one day, the This will no longer be Poppyland, but Bungalowland.
Fancy that, Clement. They're singing your song.
I should like you to come to London with me, Louis.
With you?
To be my housekeeper. Our housekeeper.
I don't know, Mr. Scott.
It will only be for a month or two in the first instance. Our previous housekeeper has not been satisfactory. But if all goes well, as I'm sure it will...
What about my father? He can't manage here on his own. Not anymore.
Well, surely somebody in the village, I don't know...
Mrs. Scott? She knows, does she? Talked about it with her?
Yes. Yes. I'm sure she will realize that you are exactly what she needs.
In London? You want me to be your housekeeper in London?
Yes. Yes, that's right. In London.
Me? Go to London? Goodness.
Did you know that Tree is doing another play by that Ibsen fellow? More freezing fjords and Norwegian gloom, I dare say.
Oh, no.
But I thought you liked the new drama, darling.
You thought no such thing, my dear.
Be a box office disaster, of course.
Well, there's no need to say it with such relish, Wilson.
You notice the way she scolds me? As if we were a married couple. Heaven forbid.
I hardly think there's any likelihood of that. Ours is a strictly professional relationship, despite all publicity to the contrary.
Thank you, my dear child. You are such an asset. Such a soothing presence. This house is so much pleasanter since you arrived.
Thank you, Mr. Barrett. You are so kind.
Mark my words, Wilson. Your play, The Sign of the Cross, will survive in the repertory of world drama long after Mr. Ibsen's Ghosts has been buried and forgotten, and deservedly so.
And of course, you are never wrong, darling.
I'm not saying that I'm infallible, Constance.
Good heaven.
But it is my job to be right on such matters, yes. After all, it is not difficult to tell the difference between a play and an open drain. A loathsome sore, unbandaged.
Yes, we've all read your opinions in the Telegraph.
At least I do not find it so.
I'm very interested to know why Mr. Barrett chose a religious theme for his new play.
Yes, well, what exactly made you write it? It was such a moving play.
How kind?
What was your initial inspiration?
As I recall, my initial inspiration was that I was £40,000 in debt.
But that couldn't have been the only reason. Are you a deeply religious man, for instance?
So long as the Almighty continues to be such good box office, I remain one of his greatest admirers. But the moment his popularity starts to falter, well, it will be off for the old and on with the new, I fear.
Mr. Barrett, that's blasphemous.
Dare you? How dare she interrupt like that? Do you know where you are? Get on with your work, girl, for goodness sake.
Please, Constance.
I'm not offended, I assure you.
No, I do not care. I will tolerate such rudeness. You are not in the middle of nowhere now. You are in polite society. And you would do well to remember it.
So, when are we going to see your next play, Clement?
My next play? Well...
Clement has no time for plays anymore.
It is true, I'm very busy.
And whenever he's not, he hops on the first train to Cromer. Well, he tells me it's Cromer. It always used to be Switzerland or some obscure forest in Germany.
Excuse me, Mr. Scott. You finished?
Yes. That's fine, Louis. Thank you.
I must tell you a funny story. You know, Clement's children, by his first marriage, that is, they have a family game which they play whenever they're together. And do you know what they do? They all sit down and try to guess where their father is this time. No, it's perfectly true. And the one who guesses correctly has to go off and find him.
It is not true.
Cromer. Well, isn't that where your maid comes from? Isn't she from Poppyland? Aren't you?
Precisely. So, now you can see its attractions for yourself.
No. No. You are wrong. She is not from Poppyland. She is Poppyland.
Yes, indeed. Just think of it. We have the famous Maid of the Mill in captivity now, bringing a breath of fresh country air to our poky little corner of St. John's Wood. For a short time, anyway. Very short time.
I'm sorry, Louis.
It doesn't matter.
My wife. Well... I shall see you in the summer, I hope. As usual.
Of course.
Goodbye, Louis. Dear Louis, I have sad news to tell you. I have not been at all well of late. Constance does not wish me to travel far from my own doctor this summer, and I confess that I am too weak to argue. But I am sure that if I could only return to Poppyland, all would be well with me again.
Would you do one thing for me, Louis? Walk to the Garden of Sleep tonight at 10 o'clock and think of me. And I shall be thinking of you. Dismiss it as the foolish whim of an old man, if you will, but next to being with you in person, it is the best remedy I can think of. Perhaps I shall be with you very soon, after all, in my usual room, with its smell of lavender, demanding eggs and bacon and blackberry pudding for supper. Expect a telegram from me to that effect at any time. Your dearest friend, Clement.
Hush, hush, hush. Here comes the bogeyman. Oh, mind he doesn't get you, for that's his little plan. Hush, hush, hush. He'll catch you if he can. For goodness sake, be careful. Here comes the bogey. Louis? What is it? Oh, come on, it can't be that bad. Hmm? It's from Scott's wife. He died this morning.
We've been instructed today to put up for sale the mill house overspan and the contents thereof. This attractive house has been the home of the Jeremy family for the past 50 years and will shortly fall vacant owing to the departure of its present occupant. I'm sure many of you will remember the mill house as centre of the Poppyland legend. As you will see from your catalogue, many items for sale.
Part number 77. 1 dozen shortened wine and stirred glasses. Excuse me. It is, as you can see, a solid, if badly scratched, dining table. Which reliably informed that the great poet Swinburne composed many of his famous works here. So, it's a little scratched, but then on the other hand, is something of an antique, about 1860. What am I bid, ladies and gentlemen? I hear 15 shillings. I hear 16 shillings. Do I hear 17 shillings? No doubt the heat of literary discussions late into the night. It's an interesting item. It's the actual bed in which the celebrated theatre critic Mr. Clement Scott slept every summer for 17 consecutive years. Owing to certain minor flaws in the woodwork.
Mr. Scott. Mr. Scott.
You know, Sir Henry Irving wrote to me today.
said he enjoyed it here so much last time that he wants to come back before the weather breaks. Imagine that. He's coming later this week, he says. Not so much as a can I, or do you mind, Miss Jeremy? Of course, I remember what you said about theatre folk. How they're not like other people. I've always remembered that. I just hope he doesn't expect too much. We're terribly crowded at the moment. But I suppose I'll manage somehow. Not when it's managing, really. Not when there's so many wonderful people to look after. It's all thanks to you, Mr. Scott. I've never been lonely. Not since the day you first came here. I've had such a wonderful life. Well, it's the sort people dream of, isn't it?